Sisterhood.
Hi everyone, I'm Alea, and I'm the A in the LAM Sisterhood.
Hi everyone, I'm Laura, and I'm the M in the LAM Sisterhood.
And we fill the world with stories for African women to feel seen, heard, and beloved. So we began with a ululation. And this ululation came from Alea Casa to myself and Amora via email. And we ululated back and we decided to come together to uninvisible and visible women in the Brazen edition of Two Introverts, which was a stage play that told the stories of 6 women in Kenya's history who've done so much to make us possible, to make this country possible. And we went on a journey of researching their stories and discovering their tales and figuring out new ways to honor them, and created a stage play that was everything by women, from the sound engineer to the props person to every makeup person. Everybody who was involved in the Brazen edition that was staged in July of 2018 was a woman, and it was phenomenal. And we sold out all the shows, and 2 of the women whose stories we told from Kenya's history, Field Marshal Muthoni wa Kirema and Zarina Patel, were actually in the audience in one of our shows. And they celebrated the fact that contemporary women were looking back at history to find themselves, to see themselves, to honor the people who made them possible, and to share that honoring with more generations.
Yeah, and that journey was 9 months long, can you believe it? And honestly, we had such an incredible time working together and realized that in each other, we had found our purpose. And actually, we dreamed up a sisterhood. And we just knew that could not be the only thing we did together. So we began kind of exploring what are the other stories that we want to tell with each other. And that's how we formed the LAM Sisterhood. So in our journey since we formed the LAM Sisterhood, we decided to create a company to actually formalize the sisterhood that we have. Because we knew that we were doing work that was ecosystem building work. We knew that we were doing work that aimed to change the way stories are told. And we wanted to really make sure that we had effective structures to enable us to do that. So we registered the company, and in that journey, actually got to work pretty immediately. We co-wrote with a community in Kwale, a thriller feature film around commercial sexual exploitation of children. It was nominated for many awards, and actually, to be honest, was imagined and envisioned by this incredible group of young women in Kwale who we worked with to write the screenplay. And we took the stories from the Brazen edition for the little ones, and with Bookbank, we created Brazen, which was really stories of these legendary women for the little ones, because we want young girls to have Mekatilili wa Menza on the tip of their tongues, in the same way that they might have Shira. Okay, I've aged myself because probably they do not have Shira in this day and age.
So we registered in July of 2019, around then. And we spent the first kind of 6 months being like, so is this company actually going to be a company, or do we need to just business? We found that there was opportunities, we found there was things we could do, like the film that Leah mentioned. And then we spent 2020, like everybody, January, wrote all these gorgeous business plans, structures. It's delightful, we can send you those documents, they're gorgeous. And then COVID happened, so we had to throw them all away. It was great, fantastic. So when that happened, we spent a lot of time just trying to figure out what is the shape of us now that we couldn't do theatre, you couldn't go to theatre, you couldn't do a live show, beautiful show we set up, we couldn't do it. So what does that look like? We're stuck in 3 different countries, in 3 different counties when the lockdown happened. So we weren't even able to try and even meet at a house or anything. So we spent a lot of time working digitally. We started ideating around what are the things that we can do that can work in this poetry world that was forming. And an idea that we'd had previously was the Brazen Podcast. And that idea came right when we were writing the original stage play, because we realized that on stage, one, it's transient. If you're not there, you will not see it. Two, is that it's limited in terms of time. You have an hour and a half, maybe two, if you're Phantom of the Opera, three, to get people to sit and pay attention. Each woman would only get 20 minutes, and you would only do so many women sing. So the podcast came up because there's so many stories to tell. They're infinite. African women have been, and non-binary people have been a significant part of this continent and the diaspora's development. You cannot run out of the stories to tell. We spent forever trying to figure out what to speak about because it's very difficult to make the choice. The podcast felt like a natural transition point, and we applied, we were shortlisted for a few things, we had interest from production partners, so we knew the viable business idea. And so around July of 2020, we were like, oh, what we're really good at is making. That's what brought us together. What happens if we dedicate the rest of our time in just making something? And that's when we came up with the concept of the Brazen universe. Basically, that's a universe that puts African women at the center. All the stories, all the content is focused on what African women want, what they need, and it's because we too are African women. And it will continue to be a safe space for non-binary people. So when we came up with the Brazen universe, we're like, we already have quite a few things. We have the Brazens for children, we have the podcast, we have a theater show, we developed a live show that we performed on Zoom, so a digital storytelling. We worked with the Nest at some point to finish our podcast pilot. Suddenly all these things started coming together. And that's when somehow on the ethers of the internet, the AKU fellowship popped up. Like, are you an innovator with a business idea? And we're like, well, I think we are. Yeah, that's what happened. So the podcast in its current form, Watch the Space, in 6 months after the mentorship teaches us things. In its current form, it's the story of a Brazen woman told in 3 acts. So each episode features a Brazen woman from both either history or contemporary, who has, or women also, who have made contributions to the space and to the shape of who we are as a people, as a continent, as nations, as cultures. So, for example, the pilot episode featured Nikki Lide, the oldest touring singer in the world, who Guinness World Records. She was touring the world at around, I'm not 100% sure, but around 120 years plus. She was still touring and singing. And her music, her life, her choices have been so compelling. So the pilot is about her, and we want to do episodes from women here, like with Marsha Mugani, all the way to Casta Sabenya in South Africa, or I can list like 800 women right now, so I'll stop myself. But each episode just features a story of that woman told the way we tell the stories. So told in a kind of more creative, a little bit more entertaining way. Yeah, that's about it.
We like to sort of say that we fill the gaps in research with our imagination, because of course one of the things that happens with the way that African women's lives has been historically told is that, you know, you've got to take it a bit with a pinch of salt, because even when we were researching Brazen, you know, we're often written about through a very sort of white colonial man's gaze. And, you know, that is one way of telling the story. That's not the way that we want to tell the story. And as African women, we take full liberty in using our imagination to bring that world alive.
And I think the other thing that's interesting about the Brazen podcast specifically is our other products are written in the LAM way, and there's kind of a single voice or a singular voice. But with the Brazen podcast, we explore Alea's perspective, Morat's perspective, Laura's perspective on this one individual story, and we get to play with our intergenerational, like this, the reference she made, which I don't know. What
of Shira? I don't think anybody in this room knows who Shira is.
Gen Z, I'm actually. So yeah, we get to play with all these different spaces that we occupy generationally, and all the different ways we see these Brazen African women, which invites the listeners to explore the ways they tell their stories.
Yeah. And all the different ways that you can connect with one woman's story. And that's been kind of the energy that we've been drawing from with Brazen, is what's the energy that we want to connect to with this woman who's gone before us. And that's been such a gift.
We are really excited, one, to work with the other members of the cohort on a story in Minority Africa. We're doing such powerful work, and we're playing similar spaces but doing very different things, and that's really, really exciting to see. I can't wait to see how we collaborate, how we grow from each other, how we learn. We're also really excited because we are great creatives. I tend not to overhype myself. I'm good at what I do. So we know how to tell a good story. And the challenge that is happening in this space, not just for ourselves, is how to monetize that. How do you make a living from it? How do you keep it consistent? And so we're really excited to work in a fellowship that's invested in not just the creative innovation, but the business innovation. That, we're literally spending the morning doing, what's it called? Lean model canvas. TM, I don't know what it's called. But we did that today, and that was so revealing. It's like, oh, so you think about audience in that way, which is really different from how as a creative I think about my audiences. So that's really exciting. We're also really excited to have the space and the resources to do the work we plan to do in the studio, so we can record a podcast. It's very basic, but my God, it's a studio, so we can record the podcast.
Yeah.
So the resources, the space, and so far, the incredible team that's been behind it. Everyone has been really supportive. Everyone is really knowledgeable on what they're doing. And so having a network of people who are experts at what they do, teaching us, mentoring us, supporting us, is also incredibly exciting.
And also, of course, the Aga Khan University is an academic institution. We're really interested in accessing the kind of research that is often behind paywalls, not accessible to young creatives like us. We're interested in media insights. We're very interested in scalability. How do 3 young African women reach the continent? And really, it's going to be partnerships with possibly mainstream media, networks and doors that we probably can't open by ourselves easily, but that institutions that have muscle and an investment in innovation can really help. We're interested in changing the game. You're going to help us.